All right, future CMAs, welcome. A massive part of what you're going to be doing is wrangling with all those what if scenarios. Business is never, ever a sure thing, right? So, how do you plan for that? Well, that's exactly where expected value comes into play. It's this awesome tool that lets us take this big cloud of maybes and boil it down to one solid number, a number you can actually use for budgeting and making smart decisions. So, let's jump right in. So, let's make this real simple. Picture this. You are in charge of a massive outdoor event. If it's a beautiful, sunny day, you're looking at $100,000 in profit. You're a rock star. But if it pours rain, you're suddenly looking at a $20,000 loss. Yikes! So what do? You can't just cross your fingers and budget for sunshine, can you? Of course not. This right here, this is exactly the kind of problem expected value was built for. Okay, so here's our game plan for today. First, we'll really define this what-if problem. Then we'll get into the nuts and bolts of how to calculate the future. We'll walk through a classic CMA example, then we'll spice things up with a bit more complexity. After that, a super important concept called the risk-neutral rule, and we'll wrap it all up with the limitations and some final tips to lock it all in. All right, first up, the what-if problem. Look, as a CMA, your whole world is going to be about making smart decisions when the future is fuzzy. The big question is, how do you take all these different possibilities, all this uncertainty, and turn it into a number you can actually use, a number you can build a plan around? And the answer to that question is this: expected value. Now, the magic word here, the one I really want you to focus on, is weighted. This is not your typical simple average where you just add everything up and divide. No. A weighted average is smarter. It gives more weight to the things that are more likely to happen. It's a much more realistic way to look at the future. And believe me, it's a concept you'll see all over the CMA exam. Okay, let's pop the hood and see how this thing actually works. It all comes down to one core formula. And honestly, it looks way more intimidating than it actually is. It's super simple. And there it is. That's the whole thing. Expected value is just the sum of P times O. P stands for probability, the chance of something happening, and O stands for the outcome, what you get, profit or loss, if it does happen. Seriously, that's it. For every single possibility, you just multiply its probability by its outcome, and then you just add up all those little pieces. Simple as that. All right, enough with the theory. Let's get our hands dirty. We're going to take that formula and apply it to a classic scenario, the kind of problem you're pretty much guaranteed to see on the CMA exam. Okay, check this out. We've got a company launching a new product. So first up, there's a 30% chance of high demand. If that happens, we make $500,000. So P times O, that's a weighted value of $150,000. Got it? Next, there's a 50% chance, the most likely scenario, of medium demand for a $200,000 profit. 50% of 200K is 100,000. And finally, there's a 20% chance of low demand. And this is a bummer. It's a $50,000 loss. So our weighted outcome here is a negative $10,000. So now we just add them all up. We take that 150,000 plus the 100,000, and then we subtract that $10,000 loss. And what do we get? $240,000. Now, here's the part that trips some people up. Is the company actually going to make exactly $240,000? No, it's impossible. They're going to make one of the real outcomes. But that 240K is the statistical average over the long run. It's the number you put in the budget. It's the number you use to make your decision. That's its power. Okay, pro tip. Seriously, write this down. Before you do any math, the very first thing you should do is look at that probability column. Do all those numbers add up to 100%? Let's check ours. 30 plus 50 plus 20. Yep, 100%. We're good. If they don't add up to 100, then ding, 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 a red flag should go up. It means either you've missed a possible future or the problem itself has a trick. It's a super fast sanity check that can save you from a world of hurt on the exam. All right, so you've got the basics down. But the exam, it likes to level things up. Sometimes they throw in another layer of uncertainty to make it, more fun. What happens when your success doesn't just depend on the market, but also on what your main competitor decides to do? Well, when you've got multiple things up in the air like that, you bring out a tool called a payoff table. Don't let the name scare you. It's really just a simple grid. Its only job is to help you keep all the moving parts organized so you don't forget a single combination. And the key calculation inside that table is finding something called the joint probability. Again, fancy name, simple idea. It's just the chance of two things both happening at the same time. So what's the probability of high market growth and your competitor launching a new product? You just multiply their separate probabilities together. That's it. That's joint probability. Okay, let's take a quick break from the math and talk about a really important concept. This isn't about calculation, it's about the mindset. And this is something the exam loves to test you on conceptually. Here it is. For the CMA exam, you must always assume the decision maker is risk neutral. What does that mean? It means they are a robot. They don't feel fear, they don't care about risk or wild swings. They have one and only one goal: choose the option with the absolute highest expected value, period. Now, in the real world, a manager might get nervous and turn down a project with a high EV if it also has a small chance of total disaster. We call that being risk averse. But on your exam, you ignore feelings, you ignore fear, you just pick the biggest number. Got it? It's a rule of the game. Okay, we're almost there. But before we finish, I want to make sure you have a complete picture. Expected value is an amazing tool, but it's not a magic crystal ball. It has its limits, and a truly great CMA knows not just how to use a tool, but when it might not be the best tool for the job. Just remember these two big ones. First, subjectivity. Where do those probabilities come from? They're often just educated guesses. And you know the saying, garbage in, garbage out. If your initial guesses are way off, your final outcome will be meaningless. Second, it's not great for one-time all-or-nothing bets. Think about it. The EV is an average over many trials. If you're only doing something once, that average outcome might not be very helpful because it's an outcome that can never actually happen. So, what's my number one piece of advice for really, truly locking this concept in? Practice building decision trees. I'm serious. When you get one of those complicated word problems with different choices and chances, drawing it out as a tree is a game changer. It takes a wall of text and turns it into a simple visual roadmap. It helps you see every path so you don't get lost in the numbers. Trust me on this one. So at the end of the day, expected value is all about finding the mathematical center of gravity when you're facing an uncertain future. Once you get that simple P times O logic down cold, these questions can actually become some of your favorite easy points on the exam. So I'll leave you with this. Think about another classic CMA dilemma, a make versus buy decision. How would you even begin to map that out with a decision tree? Thinking through that is the perfect way to take what you've learned today and apply it to the next level.